So I'll do the stat prio first, okay? Stat prio. It was dead? Lol. True. Alright, let's go to Zuldazar while I do that. Okay. So, stat prio for damage, and this is like raid. Oh, okay, what I'll do, I'll explain most of what I'm doing. What the fuck? You port here now? That's dog shit. Anyways, I'll explain most of it in raid and how it correlates to keys, okay? So, damage stat prio, you're gonna want crit and verse. They share very similar values. Crit buffs a passive that you have called Celestial Fortune, which is this thing. Where is it? Right there. Okay, so you have a chance to equal your crit strike chance to be healed for an additional 80% of the amount healed. So, Hots, Atonement, Druid Hots, Beacon even, they all benefit from Celestial Fortune. So, high crit means you're going to heal more passively, okay? Holy Shock, yes. Any type of hot healing. Ophelia, you would say Holy Shock. Alright? Alright. Yeah, so, yeah. That's stat prio for damage, okay? For keys, you want Verse, Mast. Mast scales with your Elusive Brawler passive, and you can read what that does. It's each time you are hit by a melee attack or a blackout kick, you gain stacking 16.8 crit chance until your next successful dodge, and increases your attack power by 16.8%, okay? Now, I'm gonna kind of cut into another segue really quickly, okay? This passive that I just read is how your tier set is going to essentially work, except better. So now instead of just blackout kick and getting hit from, you know, like, getting hit by melees, you also have Rising Sun kick to add blackout brawlers. So say for example, if I blackout kick, I get that much dodge. And then more dodge. So I'm at 67%, 84%, right? And then 100%. So what that means is I'm going to guarantee dodge the next melee or tank hit if it's a physical tank hit. So the 4-piece is blackout kick damage increased by 20%. You have a 10% chance to not reset your elusive brawler stack. So what that means is, so say you have, you know, say you have 84%, right? You have a chance for that not to be consumed and to basically continue to ramp it up. So 100%, 100%, that means I'm guaranteed. Yeah. You can also turn your back to manipulate it. Yes, exactly. That's a good example, Ophelia. So yeah. All right, so stat prio. Okay, is this too small, chat? I'll make it a little bigger. Okay. Verse mastery and keys. And the reason why is because you want mastery to, you want to, you know, dodge as many white hits as you can. And you want to also have verse because it's keys, right? That's the main, like, important factor of brew stat priority. So in raid, you'll run crit verse a lot. And in keys, you'll run verse master a lot. But if it's Tyrian, I suggest you go crit verse. If it's fort, you go verse master. That's what I've always done. A lot of the really, really good brews do similar things, but a lot of them also don't change talents. Speaking of talents, let's talk talents. Okay. So, I have a key build that I run in very, very high keys. Not very high keys, but you know what I mean. Keys, I guess. It's less damage, but you're very tanky, okay? And the way it works is, so the new talent, you have Yu'lon's Grace instead of Diffuse. By the way, in certain keys, you definitely want to take Diffuse. Freehold, first boss, you can reflect that damage. Underrot, definitely take Diffuse to the 2 packs that have the dot that you get. I forget what it's called. Yeah, very good. Okay? Then, that's important, okay? Now, if you feel like you are going to take a lot of damage, a lot of people sleep on Bounce Back, okay? They think this is a very shit talent, but Bounce Back is really good, in my opinion. It's pretty strong. And even just putting 1 point in it is going to help you a lot. Because when you're a Brewmaster and you're in a high enough key and you're taking a lot of stagger damage, you're not going to have 2 charges all the time. So you need to be kind of smart with how you play when you're low health, which in keys you're going to be low health all the time. So get used to that shit. Alright? Now, left side is pretty generic. In keys, you're gonna always take interrupt. You can always take ROP. Depending on the key, you could take Eye of the Tiger. But generally speaking, you also could consider taking Generous Pour. So you get group avoidance. It's kind of your utility that you provide, I guess, other than Mystic Touch and what I also just mentioned. But anyways, this is pretty much going to stay relatively the same. You're not going to really change this much. I can't really think. A lot of people like White Tiger statue. I take it in some keys, in some keys I don't. So what you would just swap that out for White Tiger for more damage. This week I'm not taking it. It's Sanguine. I'm gonna constantly be moving. This White Tiger's not gonna have that much uptime, so I'm just not gonna bother. All right. Anyways, right side tree, and this is for keys. Okay, this is not for raid. If you don't take, I hate that button. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to take it. In keys, you honestly don't have to take it because you're going to be kiting a lot anyways. It's going to lose value. So that's fine. You don't need to take it. Okay? Now, let's park left side. Left side is good. That is what we want to basically take for left side. Now, for keys, a lot of what I'm taking already is very good and pretty much what you're going to be taking consistently. High tolerance is, in my opinion, mandatory for push level keys. Okay? And if you're under geared. What it does is it gives you 4% more stagger effectiveness, and based on the level of stagger damage you're taking, you're going to get haste. Reroll bear. True, Max. True. And that's good because, yes, Brewmasters don't really need haste because your energy regen and your management around your energy is like super easy. But when you're in a high stagger situation and you take high tolerance, you're going to feel really good because your CDR on your brews is going to be even more than you already, than you hitting your rotation and stuff. So I take high tolerance in keys. In raid, you don't really need it. In raid, you can take Walk with the Ox not Walk with the Ox. You can take Bountiful Brew or, other things. Now, a lot of the really good Brewmasters will play Black Ox Brew. Okay, if you're learning Brewmaster, I highly suggest you take Bob and Weave. It's going to give you a little bit more leeway for your stagger intake. But once you learn how to play around your stagger properly, I would suggest you take Black Ox Brew. And what that does is you drink the brew, and it shares the cooldowns with your other brews. So you're going to get CDR on this too, which I'll go into in a bit. But basically, you should play this in keys. Because what you can do is when you have Black Ox Brew, it's like Incarn. Kind of. Not really. But you can pull really big and have 4 charges of Purifying Brew. So you can just purify a shitload. It's really strong. With your tier set in raid, you want to go Training of Nizal so that you gain up to 15% based on your stagger level. But in keys, I would prefer going Light Brew so that your cooldown of Celestial Brew and Purifying is 20% more effective. That just means you're going to live. You can't mastery and white hits is kind of RNG, so it's not a really it's not a stat you can really manipulate and a gameplay you can manipulate. So personally, I don't do Training of Nizal other than in raid. In raid, if you look at my raid talents, I take Training of Nizal in raid because it's better in raid. In keys, in some keys, I would take it for sure. In some keys, I would definitely take Training of Nizal. In raid, this, and this are mandatory. These, the ones here. But in keys, the new talent, Press the Advantage, it makes you really, really tanky. It's a really long description, so if you want, just pause the stream or whatever and read it out. And it replaces Weapons of Order, but you don't have Tiger Palm anymore. So it's a little bit weird to play it, because then you don't have Tiger Palm, but you get used to it pretty fast. Alright, so now let's talk about rotation. Rotation of Brewmaster is not that fixed. Okay? Like you don't necessarily just, you don't just go up to the target and hit the same rotation every time. Okay? Because you're playing this talent here. Sabim Strength, we'll call it. What that does is when you Keg Smash, it resets the cooldown of Breath of Fire. And you also want to make sure that you debuff, basically, when you keg, you want to breathe right after that so that you debuff the target. And then you want to keg on top of that, because what it does is keg will do more damage to Breath of Fire targets. Okay? So your main rotation in AoE is you're going to keg, you're going to breathe, You're gonna blackout kick, you're gonna rising sun kick, and then you're gonna do the keg breathe again. Keg breathe. And then if you have no buttons to press, you're gonna spinning crane kick. But you need to remember that spinning crane kick is your lowest priority ability, even in AoE. You don't want to spam spinning crane kick because it uses a lot of energy, and if you're spamming it, you're gonna find yourself actually out of energy, and energy management is not something you worry about as a brewmaster. Okay. So yeah, as I mentioned, so rotation is you're gonna keg, breath, keg, breath, blackout, RSK, and then you go into your fillers. So you have fillers are TP, which is Tiger Palm, and you also have spinning crane kick. Spinning crane kick is low priority, okay? Now this is your offensive rotation. Now defensive rotation, okay? Your defensive rotation as a brewmaster is more than just pressing purify, okay? And I'm gonna also talk about how to purify effectively, okay? So I'm not going to take any stagger damage here, unfortunately, because... Okay, I guess there's a tank training dummy, too. Let's go to the tank training dummy. Okay, so... I'm probably not going to take a lot of damage here because this is under-leveled or whatever. But what's going to happen is I'm going to start taking damage. Okay, so... Alright? And your stagger is going to go up and up and up, okay? And what you want to do is you don't want to purify unless you're in red stagger, okay? And the reason you don't want to purify unless you're in red stagger, because if you purify once, okay, you're going to get this buff called Chi, okay? It's called Purified Chi. And what Purified Chi does is the more stacks of this you have, it's going to make your Celestial Brew, which is your defensive, which, Ophelia, you said you played in Mop, so that's guard. This is literally guard, okay? So when you purify... Every time you purify, you get purified chi stacks. Up to 10. Yeah, rest in peace, guard. True. Okay, and when you're at 10, your Celestial Brew becomes more and more and more effective to a max of 10 stacks. So you can look up the values of it probably online. I could probably put it somewhere on the stream if you really want, but that's essentially the gameplay loop. So your offensive rotation, as I mentioned earlier, which is written there still, reduces the CDs of your brews. So that's Black Ox, that's Purified, and that's Celestial. So what you want to do is you want to use your offensive rotation enough to get CDR on your defensive abilities. And that is the gameplay, that is the feedback / gameplay loop of Brewmaster. It is literally hitting offensive abilities. So if I press this, you'll see that me pressing Keg Smash and Tiger Palm and press the advantage is going to reduce the CDs of my defensives. So you see that? So when I purify and I keg, the CD goes down faster. And I need to auto in between because I'm using press the advantage. So it just goes down and down and down, and then boom, it's available. Okay? Yeah, I do remember that actually. So what's important is, I'll give you a really good example, and I'm going to relate this to raid. So if you're doing a mythic raid, okay, or if you're doing like a really tough heroic boss, so like the end bosses of the raid, a really good example, I don't know if people played during Sylvanas, so we'll take mythic Sylvanas as the example here, okay? In between her big tank busters, she would auto you with her arrow, and that would pretty much give you guaranteed red stagger. So what you would do is you would purify every time she autoed you, and you would get the stacks that red stagger gives you when you purify. So I think that's 3. I forget. But look it up. Look up how many stacks you get for red, yellow, and green stagger. So defensive rotation. So I think, let's see. I should look it up. That's lazy. All right. How purified chi stacks really quickly. Okay. There's got to be someone in the comments that put it. All right, so for green stagger clear, you get 1 stack. Yellow stagger, you get 2 stacks. And red stagger, you get 3 stacks. Up to a total of 10. Which at 10 stacks, you get 200% increased effectiveness out of CB. CB is always going to be Celestial Brew. Okay? So that is the most important thing of your defensive gameplay loop. You want to be able to purify in red, get the purified cheese stacks, and then use Celestial Brew. In raid, as I was mentioning before, I gave you this defensive rotation sheet here, or the purified cheese stacks here. Actually, I should call that purified cheese stacks. Okay. In raid, between tank busters, typically you're going to get meleeed. So you would get meleeed, you'd build cheese stacks, you'd press purify, and then you're going to... Shut up, Max. And then you're going to Celestial Brew for the actual tank hit. Okay. And that is how you brew in raid. Now in keys, it's not as black and white. You can't just purify whenever you're taking damage. You actually have to be pretty thoughtful of how to press purifying brew. Because, for example, a really good pull example is, so the first pull of freehold that you're going to do most of the time, right? It's this pull. It's going to put you in red stagger very early on. Going into the pull, and I didn't really mention this, just do whatever, then blame the healer if you die. True. You have a passive, and if you played in earlier iterations of brew, this used to be called Iron Skin brew, but that Iron Skin brew has been implemented into your kit now, okay? So when you keg smash, blackout kick, spinning crane kick, you're going to get a buff called shuffle, and I track that right here on my character pretty much. And what that does is that increases the effectiveness of your stagger by 100%. If you go in without shuffle procced, you're going to take a lot of damage. Because, look, without shuffle, 48%. With shuffle, it goes up to 77%. So what you want to do is, when you go, you want to try to keg from a distance. You don't want to just go in and get meleeed. You want to keg to proc shuffle. And you can even spin and crane kick a little bit just to proc it. But you don't want to spam it. And that's basically the TLDR. Is there anything I didn't go over? I guess I could talk about defensive. So, oh yeah. Nizao is really good to use to clear 25% of your stagger. He used to be a little bit more offensive than that, but now you just want to use him like at a big pull when you feel like you're taking a lot of damage. It's like an extra button, but it's not that great. Fortifying Brew is like your wall or your last stand, except it's really long of a cooldown. It's like 6 minutes, but you ramp it down quite a bit. And you have a lot of CC. One of the benefits of playing with Brewmaster, other than just Mystic Touch, which is the passive that you put on the target to increase your physical damage taken for your melee friends and pet friends, is your utility. You have Ring of Peace, you have Light Sweep, and you have Para. Minus Red Pally's true. Para is really good, and it can be used to stop. So a lot of things, something I recommend is using a mouse over macro for Para. Be right back making Brewmaster. Dude, you should. It's a lot of fun. Alright, and now I think what I'll do is I'll talk about like commonly made mistakes that Brewmasters make that I've like, when I did some coaching for Brewmaster friends in season 3 when I was playing Brew and push level keys. A lot of the biggest mistakes a Brewmaster will make when they're just starting is going in without shuffle. That's one thing. Purifying really quickly. You want to think of your you're playing a Brewmaster, true. You want to think of your purifying charges as death strikes. The more you delay your purifying, the more you're going to clear with stagger. I would recommend getting a stagger bar that tracks your color. I track it here, the value, and I track the color here. You don't necessarily need to see the value, because if you're in red stagger for a really long time, you're gonna die anyways, and that's fatal amounts of damage. But you kind of want to track at least the color. A lot of times you'll see the color pop up here, but I got this from my friend Artie, who's also a really good Brewmaster player. I got this and I put it in Now's Weak Aura pack, which if you want Now's Weak Auras, you gotta sub them. You know how it works. But yeah, another commonly made mistake that Brewmasters make that I didn't really go over is how to use Exploding Keg. Exploding Keg is really good to use when you've gathered everything, and then you want to throw it down and then you want to spinning crane kick as much as you can. Actually, no, you want to spinning crane kick twice, because what that's gonna do is, so if you saw when I put the exploding keg, it got debuffed for a certain duration of time, and spinning crane kick, it does way more damage when you use that. So you want to try to spin twice after using exploding keg. Another thing that is really important that you have to watch as a brewmaster is if you don't have purifying charges. Something I didn't really talk about, but I guess I'll go into now, is a lot of brewmasters who are new to the spec don't really press expel harm, but expel harm is really good, and it's a monk ability. It's a baseline monk ability, but for brew with this talent, it's going to heal you for 100% based on your missing health. So you have to think about it like a death strike, but it's not your primary source of defensive value. It's more of like your self-sustain. As well as you have Guy Plins. Guy Plins is really good too, and what it does is when you purify, it instantly heals you for 25% of the damage purified. Of the purified stagger damage. So the more you purify effectively, the more you're gonna essentially, whatchamacallit, what's it called? The more you're going to heal yourself. Okay? That is what you want to do. So your core, like your main two abilities is Purifying Brew, Expel Harm. In a pack, if you're not able to purify and you're like sitting on low health, you want to Expel Harm. De-oxing by talent out of Nizam. Alright, and another thing that's kind of newer to Brew, but I didn't mention, is now when you Blackout Kick or Rising Sun Kick, it generates an orb. And a lot of brewmasters make the mistake of walking over their orb, and you want to kind of be careful of that. You don't want to walk over your orbs because you want to use it when you need it. So what I do is when I Blackout Kick and I Rising Sun Kick, I generate 2 orbs. If you don't want to waste the energy, yeah, you need to try to be a little bit efficient of setting it. Because look at the orbs I've generated. 1, 2, 3. I'll do another one, and now I'm at 4. So look at my health. Look at my health. I'll let it go down. I'll even get hit from the back. Okay? Yeah, don't strafe as much. Yeah, sure, Blazin. Will do, man. Alright, so like I said, when you Blackout Kick, when you Blackout Kick and you Rising Sun Kick, you generate the orbs. So like I said, less health, right? That talent right here. Watch this. You full heal. I accidentally pressed Celestial Brew because I'm a boomer and I just haven't played this class in a while, but that's essentially it. That's your self-sustain. Another thing is if you Nanuj, this level 50 dummy is ruining your life. True. It's a death strike, exactly. It's literally your death strike. Sit down too. No, Max. Alright, the other thing you want to do is you want to another thing that is not really, like, a lot of people, another mistake brewmasters make, I should say, when they're starting the class, is spinning crane kick actually sucks your orbs into you. So sometimes you need to be aware that you have all these orbs out, and if you spinning crane kick, it's gonna bring them all to you. So I'll show you another example of that. So you go here, your Rising Sun Kick. Why? I need to take damage too to generate these, but there you go. Hold on, let's do it one more time. We'll Blackout Kick, we'll Rising Sun Kick. I don't know. Is it bugged because this is level 50 or something? Why is it not generating chi orbs? Okay, it should. Anyway, so I have 2 here. Watch what happens to them when I spinning crane kick. See, they come into me. And what that does on the healing charge? Yeah, exactly. True, Ed. So as I said, that's the core defensive gameplay loop. Okay? When you suck in the orbs, it's going to register on healing done as Gift of the Ox. When you press Expel Harm, it's going to register as Expel Harm. And when you get any type of external healing that's converted into your crit, that's Celestial Fortune, as I mentioned earlier. Like I said, take advantage of Guy Plins. You don't want to just immediately purify the second you take damage, because then you're not going to take advantage of Guy Plins. And if you want to take advantage of purifying effectively, which is like death striking, you know, you don't want to death strike when you're at 90% health. You want to juice it, wait till you're at like 20, and then heal for your full health value because you heal based on the damage you take. Why do I like brew so much? All right, so what else do we have? So we have so we went over defensive rotation, we went over commonly made mistakes. Any questions, Ophelia, in chat about anything that I missed? Because Ed, shut up. This might go on YouTube, you piece of shit. Don't say that. That was a good one though. No sucking. Hey, chill. All right. Any questions? Talent questions. There are some things that I would definitely recommend you always play, by the way. Rushing Jadewind is pretty much always, it always seems better than Special Delivery. Special Delivery was good because it used to synergize with a legendary. What can I drop in Clash Tree for Avoidance Aura? You could take 1 point, or you could take Close to Heart out. You could also take range DPS meta. You could take the point out of here as well and go into that. Generous Pour. You don't really need bounce back until you get to a lot higher keys, and a lot of people will say that it's not that good. It's like a pseudo cheat death. So, I mean, if you're playing with a good group and avoidance is better, do that. But if you're pugging, do that. I would actually recommend doing that if you're pugging. And the reason why is because healers don't know how to heal a Brewmaster. Healers think that when your fucking health drops, as a Brewmaster, they're like, they need help, help. But that's not the case, all right? As a Brewmaster, you actually have a lot of self-sustain. You just have to play correctly. Because that's kind of the misconception of Brew, is that they're squishy, but healers just don't understand Brew. It's the same way healers don't understand Blood Decay. And the best way to heal a Blood Decay is to track the Runic. You track the Runic, everything is just magical. You track a Brewmaster stagger level. If they're in green stagger and they're taking green or like health damage, they're fine. Minus some things. But now that you have this talent, Yu'lon's Grace. Oh yeah, I didn't mention that. So the choice nodes here, which are the 2 new features to Brewmaster, you have between Dampen Harm and Dance of the Wind. I would potentially on Tyran week take this, but on Fort week I would take Dance of the Wind. And then, like I mentioned a little bit ago, I think I touched on Diffuse. Diffuse's value is good in Raid right now. You would want to take this on Sark for the tech to dispel unless you're a dwarf. And then this is really good because it does a lot of passive healing. I tried this on Experiments Mythic on Reclear, and I was like, sheesh. It was fucking goated. It was really good. Really, really good. But yeah. Does the Exploding Keg literally just work on white attacks or like other stuff? Well, it's a flat damage reduction, but I think it might just be melees. I forget. That's a good question, actually. Yeah. It's melee attacks. It's just melee attacks. All right. Anyways, so that's the I think that's everything. Was there any other questions? Any other questions about Brew, Ophelia? Yeah, no, it's just against melees. I'm pretty sure it's just against melees. Did I miss anything? Is my mod cute? I don't like the like undead night elf, blood elf look. I think it looks really weird, personally. But it's, I mean, like, I'm a blood elf simp. Look at me. On all my tunes, I have the same face and same hair. So you're asking the wrong person. Oh, actually, one more thing that I forgot. You want to swap between these two. And another thing about stat priority, and I'm going to stress this, is if you care about raid damage, I'm going to make my palette a Belf again when it's on sale. You should. Belf is bis. What did I want to say? Oh, yeah. Sim your character. sim the shit out of your character if you care about raid. Because I had to drop a lot of haste and then pick up a lot of haste. Because of certain trinkets and certain damage buffs and yeah. What was the last thing? Oh yeah, gear. I don't really have the best gear on my brew. I could definitely get. It's the pin in every class Discord. Yeah, true. If you can, just sim it. No further question allowed. Yeah, true. For tier sets, I went with helm, shoulders, gloves, and pants. For crafted, I went with these two for raid. If you're doing high enough keys, you can go spore cloak, because it's pretty good. It's like a pseudo cheat death. I went crafted, crit verse, chest. You want the weapon off for shock. I went for the verse mastery wrists off Magmarex, I believe. OCE is really strong. If you need like an on-use trinket, you can go for Rock Mora or Tree Mount. In some push level keys, you're probably gonna have to go double. Like double defensive, which isn't a terrible thing. And then yeah. Rings, crit verse. I got this one from Rashok Heroic. I don't have really, really good rings. But yeah. I got this one I run in keys versus mass, but let me move that and go over this again. But yeah, so that's the that's what you want to kind of look like. This is my raid build, pseudo raid build. Gem for verse and crit, but sim your character. It might be different. You gotta sim your character. It could be completely different. This is the tier I'm going with. OCE. For raid, I typically run, you know. Is that a rank too? It is. I have not. Wait, where was it? I just recently upgraded this, or just recently made this, so I'll have it for tomorrow. On Sunday when we do Sark, I'll probably gem it. But yeah, crit verse, really good for Tyran, verse mass for fort, and push level content. Sim your character, mess around with talents, sim. Don't take this if you're kiting a lot. Get rid of bounce back to take generous pour. Put para on a mouse over. Put Tiger's List on a self cast or a mouse over. And another thing that's pretty important that some people don't know is Touch of Death can completely clear your stagger, so you could use it defensively. But you most likely want to save it for a prio target. And Touch of Death, one little trick is press Fort Brew and then Touch of Death, because it'll do more damage. Alright, anyways, I am